And hello, everyone, and welcome to this new edition of GM Web3 special MultiversX, like every Wednesday at 9 a.m. UTC to speak about MultiversX, the ecosystem, the builders, the technology, and yeah, everything about what is interesting to you. And I'll be joined by my co-host and friend Arno. Hello, Arno. What's up?
Hey GRM, hey everybody.
How are you?
It's intense right now.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Because there's loads of different topics right time at the moment for on multiple fronts, just personal and professional and personal, professional multiple topics and personal too. So
So
but
it's
it's enough.
about Hatem. Many
Sorry.
things. Yeah, you're talking about Hatem
Yeah, Atom and Soul.
and Soul. Yes. Okay. Do you have anything to tell us about this?
No, I can't. But
Start.
I think you will discover things very soon.
Okay. This week. Just you to know, guys, from the audience, we don't prepare this show with Arno before, so he doesn't know, and I don't know too. So sometimes I discover things during the show. So yeah, nothing to leak today.
Nothing to leak today. No.
Okay, guys, you can go. Thank you very much for coming. No. Stay with us. We'll speak about many interesting topics today, especially about technology with our guest. But before we receive him, many things to tell you. First of all, if you're not, if you did not subscribe to our channel, so please do it. You can follow us on Twitter, on YouTube, on Twitch. Put a like, put a comment, activate the bell. Of course, all of this is very important for us, and also you. By doing this, you are informed at any new videos or new podcast, because the replay of the show is also available in podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and yeah, Deezer also. So
Everywhere.
yeah, we are everywhere. Um, uh, Also, I don't know if you guys speak French, but I received Helmut Banner, the CEO of Dynavox, on Monday at 6 p.m. We spent more than 2 hours and a half together, and many surprise, many gifts. We received Sébastien Berger from Sandbox. We received many other guests, and we talked about him, about Dinovox project, the ambition, and so on. So it's in French. So, and it's one of the most interesting project on MultiversX, and it's around NFT, and it's about financial inclusion, it's about community engagement and art. So if you did not watch it, you can find it and replay on YouTube on the live part. And I'll try to have him or someone from the team in English to present and to introduce Dinovox to you, because I think it is worth it a lot. But yeah, you can find the replay on YouTube. I would like to thank, of course, the partners of GM Web3 MultiversX for months now, Hatem and eApes. So about Hatem, it's a project that I particularly like because they brought DeFi on MultiversX, they brought decentralized stablecoin and native stablecoins on MultiversX, and they're a partner of GM Web3 MultiversX like for months now. And so if you don't know them, it's a platform that lets you store your crypto safely and grow them through simple strategies that generate passive income. And they recently launched the USH, the first native stablecoin on MultiversX, and they offer incomparable returns. With some strategies, you can expect 2-digit annual returns. If you have any question, if you want to know more about this, feel free to visit their channel, so Telegram, Twitter. You can also tag Arno. anytime. If you have any question in French, in English, in any other language, and yeah, try the protocol: lending, borrowing, liquid staking, optimize, and yeah, yield with your stable coins, and so on. You can find all the link in the description of the YouTube video and podcast, of course. And yeah, go visit this, and don't let your crypto sleep. What do you think about this new baseline?
It's good. I mean, as a matter of fact, never let value sleep, because then it will erode over time. It's
Yeah.
like, if you have an apartment that is empty, nobody is living in it. It's just a waste of value. So, when you know how to do something, do it, because it's your value, it's your talent. It's the same with money, with assets. So Hatom is a good way to put your assets at work for you.
Definitely, and I speak about the second sponsor, EAPS, later on the show. Arno, if I forgot, because sometimes I forgot, please remind me to speak about EAPS like in maybe 45 minutes.
I don't think you did.
I,
You ever forget?
Yeah, once, and
Okay.
and after I made a post because it's important. But yeah, sometimes because I don't want to speak about both partners at the same time. I want to do
Yeah.
it during the show, and sometimes I forgot.
Yeah.
So if I forget, please just.
Fun story. Do we have time for a fun story, or are we
Oh, actually, you
welcoming?
know what? We will receive Andrei, so we can say hi, and just after the fun story
Yeah,
with
because it's
him.
about EAPS. So maybe I can tell my story about EAPS after, when you make the.
Oh, let's do this. Okay. So we will receive
Hey,
our guest of the day, Andrei. Andrei, you're team leader, like the technology and infrastructure guy at MultiversX. One of them, because I know you're a big team.
yeah,
And you came on the show a few weeks ago to speak about what was it about? Andromeda?
Andromeda.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And we received a
tech
lot.
mostly. Yeah,
Kinda.
No, it was
A few
about
topics.
something else. Yeah.
few topics. Yeah,
Okay. And yeah, we received many messages from the community, and Arno and I also thought it would be very interesting to have maybe a longer interview with you to know more about your background, your experience at MultiversX, and yeah, everything that you do on this blockchain. So that's why I invited you. So thank you very much for taking the time this morning to come with us. How are you, Andrei?
Oh, great. It's a wonderful morning here. Yeah, great. Great morning for.
Do you have
for
sunshine
connection.
too?
Sorry.
Do you have sunshine too?
Yeah. I had to draw the blinds because it's very sunny outside.
Are you from Transylvania?
Oh yes, I'm from CBO. Same as the guys. It's a nice coincidence. When we met, I was actually not living in CBO, same city as them, but I'm from the same city, and I just moved back.
So you don't like sun?
We do. Sometimes I joke that we are reverse vampires actually in Transylvania because we love sunshine and we feast on garlic. So we need garlic to survive. Yeah,
Evolved vampires. Right.
yeah, anti-vampires. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So yeah.
So yeah, my story. Yeah.
Wait, don't worry. We have many questions. We will
Yeah, I
later
know.
leave
I have many
the
questions.
interview. But the
So
thing is, we have time this morning.
yeah,
So don't
that's
feel
very nice.
pressure. It's okay. We have time. So first of all, to the audience, and of course, feel free to ask your question in the chat. If you have anything to ask to Andrei about him, about the technology, about the challenges, about everything, feel free to do it. We will ask them to him. But first of all, Andrei, can you take the time, to introduce yourself, about your background, maybe where you born, also what companies you worked on before MultiversX, and after we'll try to understand how you discovered cryptocurrencies. But first, let's talk about you.
Yeah, so my name is Andrei. I was born and raised here in CBO. I also studied here. I've been a programmer for like 25 years since I was kind of like since high school, basically. And I realized that stronger along the way that just wanted to be a high-level programmer. And then I did IT school. I was 1 year as an Erasmus student in Ireland, which was amazing. I'm in love with Irish culture and language and whatnot. I also had an internship at Microsoft in 2009. It was quite cool, but it was really cool. I was part of the only Windows team outside of the US. But I also realized
where was the Microsoft was in Ireland?
Yeah, in Dublin. They have a big center in Dublin.
Yeah.
I actually worked on internationalization stuff and keyboards, and anyway. So actual Windows team. I think it was Windows 10 during that time. Anyway, I also realized I do not want to live in a big corporation style of company. So part of me loved it because I was working with smart people. Part of me hated it because it was a big, slow company. And so I went back to Romania to finish university, and I just knew I did not want just this regular job. So I tried for a few years to become self-employed, which I failed miserably. I mean, I worked my ass off, barely got out of the house for months on end. And in the end, I actually chose to get a job, but I only got hired part-time because I wanted to do my projects in the extra time, which also did not work so well. Then I moved to another city. And this time I was smart about it. I got good at Java, and I found a job in Java because they were paying well at the time. And I was like, whatever brings in the money, I want to do my own stuff. And then a few years later, somehow I met Luci and Benny, and they were like, man, we have this project and we heard about you. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And for me, it was like this mind-blown moment because for once I saw it like my one chance to work on what I love during the working hours, not only outside of them. So that was it. That was like almost 7 years ago. So it's a long story, and I never looked back. So
it seems that you've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, even if
I do, but I'm terrible at business. So I love the spirit, not so much the action. And there's actually another thing about being an entrepreneur, which I wish I knew. When you're an entrepreneur, you have to do business. And if you're a programmer and you're doing business, you're basically not doing programming. So you're wasting part of your assets, basically. So my assets are I'm good at coding. I'm not so good at talking to people and setting up businesses. So I thrive in an environment when somebody else is doing that. And there's this startup mentality, but I don't actually have to talk to clients. So talking to clients is the worst thing ever. I feel for the guys at BD. It's like I love talking to audiences, but it's a very different thing. And actually, every IT company has a department whose sole purpose is that the clients don't talk to the programmers and the other way around. So yeah, and whenever the breach occurs, productivity drops. So that's yeah. I learned this the hard way. Yeah. So it's nice to be self-employed when your product is very technical and when your clients are other technical people. And I think that's one of the reasons I love doing dev tools, because my clients are other developers. And that's nice. That's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you discover cryptos, Bitcoin, blockchain? What was the...
Well, I had heard about Bitcoin before MultiversX. I was very skeptical about it at first. I have a very good friend who's also one of the smartest people I know. And I was talking to him. I was like, man, this Bitcoin sounds like a horrible bubble. He was like, yeah, but the technology is also, there's technology there. So not everything is a bubble. There's a kernel of true value there. I was like, guess you're right. I started thinking about it. I guess you're right. But I still didn't do anything about it. So my first actual true engagement with crypto is once I met the guys, and I did not come from a crypto background at the time. So 7 years ago, almost nobody was doing crypto. Nobody was developing in crypto, and that was kind of the rationale behind hiring the team, the core team. The company was not looking for people from crypto. It was just looking for good engineers who are willing to learn new stuff, and learn we did, because everything was very new at the time. And in a way, this kind of mindset also helped us build our products from first principles. Is something we hold very dear to our hearts. So everybody was all about EVM at the time, and we wanted to do EVM. So that's But then we realized we can't do sharding properly with EVM. So we started building our own stack, and we kept building
Andrei,
a lot of stuff from scratch. So
Andrei, can you tell us what was when was it? 2018, 19? What was
actually I didn't jump ship immediately. So I started like for a month or two. I was like until I was waiting. So I didn't quit immediately from the old job, and also had a grace period, I think, a month or so. And during that time, I was working 2 jobs. I was working part-time on MultiversX, and
it was in 2019?
So it was late 2018, and then I went full-time in December or something like that. And 2019 was full MultiversX. It was a very crazy year.
Andrei,
what I did that year, I'll tell you.
Andrei, can you tell us about, because it's always interesting to hear the story from different people. We heard it from Robert, of course, from Benjamin and Lucian, but this story of before you all decided to go full time, and apparently there were a few months trying to prove something.
Yeah.
Does the math
real,
work,
that's not,
etc.?
because it's so crazy. It's very hard to believe. It's too good to be true, right? So you find a company which is a startup, which is awesome, which is doing some amazing tech, which you wanna be part of that. And it's also this very exciting new field, which is crypto. And then then there's also the economic thing, because you think, oh wow, I'm going to have an impact actually on the society around me. We're going to be launching a token. I'm going to be launching some technology that people might use, which is not usually the usual IT guy experience. Oftentimes you'll work. So I worked for several years on a company where we had like 10 clients. 10 guys were at best, and then I worked on another company, which again, it was a research project. It was a few clients, and then you discover a company where you have the potential, to change millions of lives, and like, it's too good to be true. It's like, how is this a thing? This is not how the IT market works. So it's just you're phased about it. Then I was like, and for instance, my girlfriend, my current wife, girlfriend at the time, she was like, this is what is this? And I was like, no, this is it. Just trust me on this one. This is it. And then, of course, after you start working a little bit with the guys and you start actually, coding and shipping, you realize, oh wow, oh man, this is real. This is for real. This is that once in a lifetime opportunity. I sometimes say once in several lifetimes opportunities, because most people never get this opportunity in a lifetime. Plus being in Romania, and not only in Romania, but not in Bucharest, like in a small town of Romania, a relatively small town in Romania, where I had worked before, and we had struggled to hire people because it's not such a big town. So I had the experience of being in another company and trying to hire people and not finding anyone. And suddenly these guys found like 10 super amazing like developers, like top of the top in this town, and like, wow.
And so what, to come back to you, you said that when you met Lucian and Benny, they said that they heard about you. And you talk about this
university.
You talk about this small group of engineers right from the start. What do you think that they saw in you that you all had in common?
For me specific, so they had heard about me, I think from another guy that was another one of my colleagues. And the thing about me actually at the time, what I was studying in my free time, I had somehow discovered, I had been looking for this for like 10 years. And nobody could ever direct me in the right direction. And at some point, like a year previous to that, I had discovered like formal verification. I was like mind blown. It was like, oh my God, I've been searching for this my whole life. And I did the COQ tutorial, COQ. It's a French, by the way. It's a French software. It's an amazing language. In the meantime, there's a lot more languages like that. At that time, there were just like COQ and 2 others. Now there's like plenty, which is, you know, mostly people come to this from mathematics rather than from regular, you know, IT, which is a pity because it's amazing. And actually, my dream was to research this and somehow find a job where I can use this. And the guys had also heard about it because not many people use formal verification. It's used mainly in aviation and like space stuff. And then on blockchain, because it's a lot of money. And ideally, people should be responsible with that money, not so often. But, you know, and I was like, man, this is it. So this is my one chance to get into formal verification and mathematics and, you know, this kind of more advanced programming stuff. And they were looking for someone like me. So I was like, man, you know, I want to do this. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Can you
But they were also very impressed with me because it's not so often that you find somebody who has this interest.
Can you briefly explain why formal verification is important to blockchain?
Yeah, it's a very fun thing. It's you know, I don't know how much you like mathematics in school, but I suppose most people remember that you had like theorems and you were proving them, and it was this whole process. Oh, wow, we have this theorem, and how do we prove it? And how do we prove this thing? And how do we solve this problem using the theorem we just proved? And in programming, we usually don't do that. In programming, we usually just like code and maybe write some tests, and that's kind of it. And I always felt there should be more because along my career, I've been in a lot of projects which have devolved into a mess. That's something that if you're a senior, you know, IT guy, you've seen a lot of projects devolve into a mess. And not only my projects, like I've used a lot of frameworks and a lot of development environments, which over time had devolved into a mess, or where you had like this beautiful, simple tutorial, and the first time you stepped outside of your tutorial, things became a mess instantly. And I was always preoccupied, how do you prevent this, you know? And there's a nice you know, people who are in like the more mathematical side of programming have this saying, you know, when we build a bridge, you know, we don't just start building and hope for the best. You know, we usually have mathematicians and engineers and structural resistance guys who come and actually calculate stuff. You know, and the same when you build a house, and so on. Why don't we do this in software as well? Because software is also you know, can be dangerous. So what would it mean to actually
Can be more dangerous than bridges.
Yeah, exactly. In a lot of in a lot of situations. So what would it mean to actually, you know, be scientific about it? Be not just like tinkering, not just engineering and principles and best practice, but actually be scientific about how we build software. And then I discovered this thing. And the thing is, turns out programs are a bit like theorems as well, because and the theorem about a program, if you will, is that it works as you expect. And how you expect it to work is basically, well, it's like maybe a function, or, you know, for certain inputs, you expect a certain output. And if you have a powerful enough language, you might express this in a way that you can prove, you can reason about it, just like you reason about a theorem in mathematics. In mathematics, the theorems are expressed in a mathematical language, is very precise. And so why can't we express programs in the same sort of mathematical language? And it's a very deep rabbit hole. So if you start investigating it, it goes a very long way, and it has a lot of like aha moments. It's very mind blowing if you're that kind of guy or girl. And turns out that you can actually prove stuff about programs. And my mind-blowing moment was like, I was doing this Coq tutorial, and at some point, you start slow, you know, you start with very small things. You start with numbers and, you know, proving stuff about numbers. And at some point, actually, I had a bug. So I wrote a function, and it was buggy, and I couldn't prove it. It's like, it was not obvious. So I couldn't prove it. It's like, I was, man, I what's going on? And I thought about it, and I thought about it, and then I found a bug. I was like, oh crap, that's the first time like I used the theorem to find a bug, and then I could prove it. And also, it's a very powerful thing about formal verification is that, you know, normally when you test, you can only test on so many values, right? Even if you do a fuzz testing and you test really aggressively, maybe you test on 1 million values, but it's never infinite. It's just a finite number of tests that you can ever write or generate or execute in a finite amount of time. Whereas if you prove a theorem works for an infinite amount of inputs, which is very powerful. You can prove that it always works.
Yeah.
Now, there are some caveats. Now, before we move on, there are some caveats, because I know it was very popular at the time. Everybody was talking about formal verification in Web3 because it sounds good, but most of the people had no idea what we're talking about. And we are lucky enough to work with runtime verification, which are into that. They're some of the most amazing guys I've ever met. And Grigore Roche, the CEO, he said a very nice thing about formal verification. Formal verification doesn't prove you're right. It only clarifies your assumptions. So, because there's always assumptions. We don't live in a void, we're not proving theorems about numbers. Everything we do in software, there's assumptions. Even the assumption that your processor won't fail, or your hard disk will not be hit by a cosmic ray, which will change a bit from 1 to 0. That happens very rarely, by the way, but that happens as well. It is recorded.
How do you find that was the issue?
As an aside, voting in the States, so they had a very, very small city, and there was voting, and they had like 1,000 votes or like 3,000 votes. It was not possible because they only had like 13 inhabitants. And they investigated. It turns out there was a failure in a disk, and it's probably caused by cosmic ray, which had flipped a bit, which is also why you should always have redundancy. So anyway, yeah, so it only clarifies your assumptions. And then I was like, yeah, that's it. And my goal still, after so many years, was always to get more advanced testing. So formal verification is a very lofty goal, but it's nice to at least try to get there slowly. There's many intermediate steps to get there. And it's nice to go in the right direction. Now, in an ideal world, I would have been like this researchy guy. But as I was saying to everybody back then, well, before we do formal verification, we need to have something to do formal verification on. So 7 years ago, we had nothing. We had no product, we had no blockchain, no VM, no nothing. So it was a bit early for that. So I was like, yeah, first things first, we have to build this thing. So here I am. I'm still like trying to get there slowly, but we're still building part of the stuff. And probably this year we'll have a bit more wiggle room for research. But first few years, we had to build the VM from scratch. We had to build, the first smart contracts from scratch, everything. So it was a lot of work. There are other projects, other teams have like hundreds of people, or at least tens or dozens of people working on it. Like in 2019, it was the first year I was alone. So
I'm curious, Andrei, regarding this topic, exactly this topic about teams. I'm curious to have your opinion. There's several startup cultures. Sometimes people are pro, building larger teams.
Mm-hmm.
Some other times it's more a culture of a commando, small units, very fast iteration speed. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I'm totally the commando guy, because I've been in, for 7 years in this commando structure. Once the project grows, you have to grow the team, but you have to be very mindful of it. So right now, the way we work right now, so we start with the beginning. We were 100% commando style for the first few years. It's the only way we could pull through. It was crazy. It was the only way. Because we didn't have the resources to have. Like, I remember I was like 3 or 4 years into Multiverse, Elrond at the time, and I remember there was this news that Amazon is hiring like 1,000 developers to do some blockchain-ish stuff, like with no commitment, no end goals, no nothing. I was like, what are you even on about? But that's the thing. Often big companies will choose to have a lot of developers, not necessarily to ship something, but often just to have them available. If they decide at some point that we want this product, a lot of big companies will think, yeah, we'll just invest in 1,000 developers. they'll do or they won't do something.
It's compute resource, basically.
But it's resources. Yeah, we're building resources. So in a year or two, we have this army of people who can pick up projects and do stuff. If you have a lot of resources, fine. But it's not a very efficient use of your resources. And if you're a small startup, it is out of question. So you want to go full in commando. And that's what we did. That's why we only hired like best of the best. And we still do that. Only the best of the best, people who are able to do a project on their own, who are able to be like these locomotives. Like we don't want like wagons, we want the locomotives kind of people who can push through. I always think about this locomotive that with a the snowplow. You have like a huge like meters of snow, and there's a locomotive with a snowplow just pushing through. It doesn't matter. You need those kind of guys. And the first year we were absurdly few people. So VM and contracts, it was just me and Robert for a while, for some time. And then even when we started to hire more guys, it was mostly like the first new hires were like for Maya Exchange or X Exchange. So they weren't directly helping us. So it took a few years until we had a small team, and even now this team's very, very small. Thing with big teams is you get a lot of overhead from communication. So it's easy to hire someone when you have a project and you say like, okay, we can give them this project. You do and you do this, and we communicate every day or every few days. But you don't have to check every day that they're doing fine. Once you have a more interconnected project, you also. Another thing that people don't realize is not just the communication, but also the merges. You have to be very mindful of how you split your code. Because if I'm working on the same piece of code as you are, and we have conflicts, it's tricky. I have a very good friend from university. He was like, with him, I was doing most of the school projects, and we communicated so well that we were able, like the night before, we were like, you're doing this, I'm doing this. We were both coding through the night, and then in the morning we would put our code together and it would be working perfectly. I've never had it with anybody else in this life, and this doesn't happen. For anybody out there who's not technical, this never happens. This is very weird to happen. So you have to think very well how you split your tasks, and it is work. And even now I have these amazing colleagues which I work with, but even so, like thinking like, what are we doing next? How we split our work, what's the next project, takes a bit of time. So, which is great because I can multiply my forces. But if it was like 10 people, I probably, and that's what also happens a lot in companies. If I had like 10 or 20 people I would be working with, I would likely not be coding as much or at all. That's what happens. People stop coding at some point because they just coordinate other people. And I never wanted to do this because, coding is nice. I don't want to give it up. So.
And so what could be, and I'm going to switch on another topic completely, but do you think that AI is a solution to scale team of super coders as you talk about?
Yeah, it is a solution, but I feel it's a shallow solution. So it helps you with the boring work. It's not a deep solution. A lot of people, I think, so for me, that's a big subject. But for me, programming has some deep problems. The way I see programming is, I think it's like 90 years old. We've had programming for like, it's not 100 years yet, right? So, because we had like Gödel and Church and Turing, it was like around World War II. We have not yet had 100 years of programming, and because things seem like they're moving very fast, like at least the hardware and so on. We feel like it's a very new, it's evolving very fast. The programming is evolving very fast. But if you look deeper into it, it's not. So the programming paradigms we've had for like decades, we're moving in circles. Most of the programming languages recycle the same ideas. So if you tell somebody, oh, I want to do a new programming language, or oh, there's this new programming language, 90% chances are you'll have the same for loops and ifs and variables, the same concepts. We're still moving around in circles. when people say programming, we mostly think about syntax. Sure, syntax, but syntax is shallow, right? You can change syntax and you still have in spirit the same programming language. So and truth is, it's still a very immature field. We're still figuring out how to code. We're still figuring out what are the good paradigms, what are the bad paradigms. We have there's a great book called The Clean Coder. The Clean Code is a series by a guy who calls himself Uncle Bob. It's mostly Java centric. There's a lot of good practices, but with my colleagues, we have this. We used to have this like periodic sort of seminars. We go together and we study the book and we try to find examples in our work. It's very good. It makes you a much better coder, but it's still just a series of best practices. It's not science, you know. It's engineering best practices coming from years of experience of other people or your own. But we're still moving in circles with programming, and there's some very deep issues. Some deep issues like how do we test concurrency, which we do not have, you know, a ready solution for. How do we test, you know, how do we write specifications that are bulletproof? How do a lot of stuff like that? I could go on forever, and I think that those are very deep issues, and people, I think, just and there's a lot of inefficiencies by having big teams and having, you know, spending a lot of time testing and retesting things that maybe should not be retested, or having there's a lot of companies who still have a lot of manual testing and so on. All of these things, I think, stem from some deep limitations in how we perceive and how we do programming nowadays. And I think a lot of people are hoping that AI will magically solve those deep problems and create better efficiency. And I think there is a lot of efficiency to be gained. So a lot of that manual, tedious work that we do, a lot of the stuff that juniors do, maybe writing tests and so on, might be aided a lot by AI. Or in my work, I haven't yet played that much with it, just a little bit. Maybe I want to do a big refactoring, and maybe I spend 2 days just editing in like 1,000 files. That's great for AI. But then again, we should also ask ourselves, why am I editing 1,000 files? If it's something I just thought about, and you know, to implement my idea, I had to edit 1,000 files. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe if I had organized my code better, maybe I wouldn't have to edit 1,000 files. And that's the thing with AI. AI is like a patch, you know, it's like a Band-Aid. If your project is not so well organized, maybe you can go on with the AI to make for maintenance at least. Because prototyping is a different thing. Prototyping, yeah, well, it's great to use AI. I'll definitely play with some AI. But if you have to maintain some big software, and you're thinking about using AI to maintain it because, you know, you have to edit so many files and do so many things, maybe it's worth thinking, why would you use AI? And my theory is that if we get better at programming, we might actually decrease the need for AI, because all of our code will be, you know, super high level, super smart, and super powerful. So you won't need to, you know, get your AI assistant to help you because you duplicated code in 1,000 places, or, you know, there's this pattern that you didn't quite manage to abstract away, you know, stuff like that.
So what do you think? The other day I heard Benjamin say that by the end of 2025, he thinks 90% of the code in the world will be written by AI. What do you say to this take? Because when I hear you, it feels like I don't know if there's reluctancy to.
I think they're orthogonal. So there's two orthogonal things, and I think people are focusing on AI very much right now because it's the cool thing. So they're orthogonal. They can help each other very much. One of them is using AI to code, and the other one is the foundations of programming. They're different directions. They're the alpha and the omega, the yin and the yang. And one of them just happens to be very popular right now, and the other one happens to not have ever been popular. But they actually can gain a lot from one another. One of my favorite use cases. So the big problem with AI, so AI is great, but the big problem is it's unreliable, right? So
yeah,
I love the term vibe coding because it is what it is. It's a vibe. When I like to compare programming to a human mind. We have two parts in our human mind. We are rational creatures, but we're also very intuitive creatures. A lot of people think we're like these rational creatures who also happen to have intuition and feelings. I think the opposite. I think we're very, very emotional creatures, also happen to sometimes be rational.
I agree.
I feel that AI is a replica of our more intuitive side of because think about it. One of the first applications of AI was sentiment analysis. It's very, very successful because it allowed companies to feel the vibe of reviews, like on Amazon or on Google Maps. It is the intuitive side of us. Problem with the intuitive side is it is often right, but it's not reliably right. On the other side, we have the very rational, like theorem-proving formalisms and so on. Problem with this, first of all, it's a bit dry, so people might be turned away from it. Second of all, it's sometimes you need a PhD to work with it, and it's these problems. It's hard to work with. It's under-researched, or it's not necessarily under-researched, but it's absolutely underused in the industry. And the thing is, you could use one to help the other. So one of my favorite use cases for AI it's a thing called proof mining. So it turns out even if you have a formal system, even if you have a powerful enough language to allow you to write formal specifications, writing the proofs, other than the very simple proofs, is a very hard job. It's a very tedious job. And if you do it, you can do it programmatically and so on. You can have heuristics, but best of all, you can use the AI to find your proofs. And it's called proof mining. And it's actually the best use of both technologies, because if you do proof mining, what you got is a proof. So there's absolutely no question that is correct. There's no way it can not be correct, because you have an entire system on this side that is proving that everything you did is correct. But you didn't have to do it all by hand, because you have an AI system who did it. So right now, we're very hyped as a society by AI, but we don't have anything on the other side.
Okay.
And that's, and maybe you also heard Benny talk about the truth machine, or research into how do we prove that things are correct. Because these problems are not new. They're not specific to AI. The other big system that we've had is our collective, social interactions on social media. We've had it for 10 years at least. And it's been devolving, degenerating into a huge mess of disinformation and whatnot for years now. And AI is just accelerating that. I'm not anti-AI or anything. I don't want anybody to go away from, or I'm not AI skeptical. I really think that a lot of code will be written by AI. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think we need the other side as well. So we need, the spurs, the harnesses. We have a powerful horse. We don't know how to build saddles yet, and we don't know how to build. We're figuring out how to build spurs and saddles, and the whole harness of the horse. So I should put a harness on the AI to make sure that we're really using it powerfully enough. And one of the reasons I'm a bit of a hipster myself, because everybody's doing AI now, and I want to do the other thing. Not necessarily because I don't like AI, but because I think there's a lot of people already on the AI side, and there's very few on the other one. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I'm going to bring you on another topic after, but before this, GRM, you asked me to tell you 45 minutes. It is the time to talk about our second sponsor.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I would like to tell you guys, I am listening to you since the beginning, and it's maybe the first time of my life when I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to engage, because what you say is very, very insightful. I prepared a few questions, but actually, you know what? You were just answering all of them by yourself. So I'll let you lead the show. And so thank you very much for this, and I will let you continue just after. But I would like to thank the sponsor, the second sponsor of GM Web3, which is eApes. I don't know if you know eApes, Andrei. It's one of the oldest NFT. Do you have one? Have you minted one maybe in 2000?
I don't think so. I might have. I don't think so.
Well, it's 3D monkey face, like apes.
But I know them. I know them. They're really
Very
nice.
classy.
I really like them.
Yeah, they are one of the oldest, one of the biggest NFT collections. They've been through so many things: change of team, bear market, NFT market completely down, and so on. But they keep building. They have a vision. They hold it. They have a very engaged community, resilient. This is really what I think, and they support GM Web3 for months now. And thank you very much to them, to Mercy, and so on. And they are launching a new collection, like small collection that will be launched on Solana. So maybe it will be an interesting transition for other discussion. And yeah, so by this new collection, smallest than the previous one on MultiversX, that will stay on MultiversX. It's important. They want to explore new ecosystem, new community, and maybe to make a bridge between both and to attract and so on. So yeah, thank you very much, EAPS, for this. And Arno, you had a fun fact about the EAPS. I'll let you tell us about it.
Yes, so it was on the night, this Sunday night, and I woke up at midnight and couldn't go back to sleep. And I don't know why, I woke up and I was thinking about early stage NFTs on MultiversX, on Elrond. And I was thinking about my Punk. I was super proud because I had one of the first part of the collection of the Punks, and I had one super cool one. And at some point, I received an offer in EGLD. It was worth 20,000 euros for that Punk. It was insane. And you know what's more insane? I said no.
Yeah, that's the way. This is the way. This is the way. I also never sold any of my NFTs. So
Same.
Anyways,
Same.
so there's a part of that story that I have a question for you, Andrei, because so my Punks, I start thinking about them, and so I go on Xoxno, I look for the collection, I see the floor price, and then I think, oh, but my Punks, they've been in staking for so long, so I go onto their website. And seems like I can't claim because the smart contract that doesn't have enough gas.
Okay.
And I can't withdraw my Punks that are in this contract. So they're basically locked or stuck there.
Okay.
So I have a question for you. If you want to look at this, how can we, because the team has not been working on this anymore.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So is there a way to save, because I'm sure I'm not the only one with Punks stuck in that contract.
So the problem is that it's not enough gas to retrieve them, or
yes.
Okay.
I mean, I went on the Explorer and it says that the smart contract didn't have enough gas.
No. So the gas is always coming from you. It doesn't matter.
Gas, okay, but
so the gas is not. Maybe if I don't know the architecture of the contract.
Yeah, but
if a contract is calling another contract, maybe it's not putting enough gas. Might be.
The issue had something with gas.
Okay,
I had enough to provide. So
so gas is something that all blockchains have. It's a way to pay for computation. We're constantly trying to improve how we do that. And it's a big problem. It's also because people don't want to waste too much time computing gas, so we're trying to do more and more of these things automatic. But sure, there's a lot of projects like that, and maybe if they're not maintained properly, you might not have the right amount of gas. I don't know. I have to look into the specifics.
Yeah, I'll send you the specific contract.
Yeah.
But
funny thing, I'm actually working on some gas related stuff these days, and I still have the dream of certain way of doing things on a blockchain. Where you don't get these problems, but there's still a lot of places to improve, and it depends also on a per project basis. So we're trying to get this to make it easier and also get a lot of responsibility off of developers with gas. But yeah, so far we've been able to do so much, but there's more coming. So
let me finish my story. So I'm there and I can't get my Maya Prinks back. So, okay. And then I go back to my wallet and NFTs because I wanted to have a vibe of the old days. And so I see that I have an ape. And so I go back on Soxno and I look at, the top collections, and I see that AE apes in the weekly volume is still there, still in the top ones, daily, weekly transaction volume. Of course, it's not the volumes like back in the crazy days of NFTs, but they're still there. And I look at their floor price, and the floor price is above 3 EGLD. And I'm like, damn, those guys are, resilient. So resilient, And it's great because I think it has a lot to go with the culture. This community, this project. Now, if I had to take one NFT project to illustrate Elrond MultiversX NFTs, I would say it's those guys. And it's insane.
We remember that the mint was at the time, if I remember, it was 1.8 EG. No, it was 0.8 EGLD. Sorry. So of course, EGLD was higher dollar. But if you just take the EGLD rate, the floor price is more than 3 times the mint price. So yes, I agree with you about the resilience, because really, you know what? They've been through even my FUD. Because at the moment, I really, really thought that some things were not good. And I was a holder, I'm a prime holder. So I felt that I should say what I think about the project. And actually, you know what? They listened to me. They did not apply, of course, all what I say. It was not the point, but they listened openly, and they agree on things. They disagree on things. I always spoken with mercy. Sometimes we disagree 100% with humility and talk and so on. And so, I agree with you. It's not you know what? The hardest thing is to last, and actually they did so far. Maybe I don't know if you wanted to speak about something else just after this.
Just one thing I wanted to say, because it's not for us. It's not the first bear market. It's not the first time that it's like that. We've been through this before, and we also always said that the projects that are still building and are still delivering in a bear market, they're the ones. Because a lot of people launch in the bull market, and the market is high. You see a lot of projects, and some of them are good as well. But those who survive the bear markets, or who launch in the bear market, or who you see building year after year, no matter how the market goes, those are the ones. Those are the ones who are gonna go very far. So that's my take. And I'm also very careful to who's still building in the bear market, and I always encourage people to keep building in the bear markets as well, because that's when you see the true color of people.
Definitely. Just one question, because we spoke about Solana, but let's not maybe focus on one specific chain. But maybe, Andrei, can you tell us what other technology, what other blockchain, what other ecosystem do you use maybe?
And I'm not using anything other than MultiversX.
Okay, next question.
Getting it out of the way, Alex Portal. I did not feel the need to complicate my life. Okay. Oh no, wait, I did use EVM. So when we launched ERD at the time, it was ERD. It was before EGLD. We first launched, so it was before the mainnet launch, so we couldn't launch on our mainnet because it did not exist. It was in 2020. And we had a launch of tokens on Ethereum, and then they were somehow then they were locked, and then they were minted at mainnet launch. And that was my own experience using Ethereum and MetaMask, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. At the time, the congestions were like insane, and I remember I had some dust, which was not even like very little dust. It was like I think a few, like $10, $20, $30, and I still have that wallet, and I still can't move it out because the transaction fees are more than what the tokens are worth. So, and then I realized, oh man, congestion is really bad, and if you don't have like I don't know, at least thousands of dollars, worth of tokens to move around, like the transactions cost will just eat you. And I was like, this is not sustainable. This is not like if I want to buy a bread, I'm going to pay like 10 times more for the transaction fees. But anyway, that was my only experience with another chain. I do want to start investigating a bit with other chains because we built a framework which is I think it's really nice, and I think it would be nice to adapt our development framework for other chains as well. So we at MultiversX we all believe that we shouldn't. So users don't care about which chain it runs on, and we should all get this into our heads that we right now a lot of the projects are contained to one chain, but the actual user, the actual humans out there, they probably don't care. Just like they don't care what web infrastructure, I don't know, a web page runs on, or if it's ASP.NET or JavaScript or whatever. So yeah, the way forward for the industry is that we have bridges between everything and everything, and we can move assets easily between everything and everything. So that's why I've been investing a lot in bridges and whatnot. So yeah, there's a lot of good. So I have huge respect for everybody who's building out there. There's a lot of good projects. I think Solana is doing great right now. It's good time for Solana. So the difference between me and Solana, between MultiversX and Solana is like this. Solana did not choose to do sharding. They did consider it. They were like, it's too complicated. It's probably not worth it. They're not excluding it also. So I heard people from Solana say, yeah, we might do sharding at some point. But it's hard. And it's hard to do sharding if you don't start with sharding. Anyway, the point is, the powerful thing about sharding is that it gives you theoretical infinite scalability. Whereas if you just do like, if you just scale the machines, if you just scale, the base tech, you could go, of course, a lot farther than Ethereum is right now, a lot of Bitcoin. I'm not talking about Bitcoin and so on. But you will hit at some point some limitations. And that is why we chose sharding, because we thought in the long term. We also thought that the demand for sharding for the demand for throughput will be a lot larger, a lot faster. Turns out we're not there yet. So the industry is not mature enough that we need millions of TPS yet. But when we do, we'll probably need sharding either way. Right now, for the TPS, Solana is doing great, and a lot of other chains are doing great. I think like Sui, Aptos, and there's a lot of very good chains out there who are doing great. But it might become tricky if the usage increases above a certain threshold. So that was our gamble. That was our bet that sharding will be there. And I think the reason why people don't appreciate sharding as much yet. Near, of course, Near is they also do sharding. There's a lot of them. There were some others that died along the way, but
they revealed that they were inspired by Elrond team.
Yeah, absolutely. We were the first who pushed really hard on that, and they really pushed through and really actually made it.
If I may, and what was interesting in 2020, if I remember, is that Elrond team managed to make sharding marketable.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was more popular then. So
but it's because it was on Ethereum's roadmap. I mean, Vitalik also praised the team because of the work.
Yes, but I think people that onboarded on Elrond at the time didn't have any idea about Ethereum roadmap. Okay, I think.
Not so much. Thing is, so we have to understand that blockchain right now still is, and even more so in 2020, was not a widespread, mainstream thing. So most of the people who are into blockchain
Ethereum roadmap at the time, just maybe few people, but most of people, the mass adoption.
I'm sorry, Jerome, but it is how I discovered Elrond.
You,
no, but back then in 2020, when Ethereum 2.0 was the biggest thing happening in the space, and you had the possibility to lock up your ETH in this contract, etc., etc. It was you had people, of course, attracted by speculation because there was high volatility already, but there were more people back then attracted by the technology and the vision and the cypherpunk ethos. And so when I dug into the Ethereum 2.0 roadmap, the sharding was the fact that the thing that made me interested in, because it was the vision that, okay, the space was going to grow so much that you had to find a way to scale, and sharding was the way. And so I dug into other blockchains going into sharding, and that's how I discovered Elrond.
I agree, but I really believe that it was not the process of people during the bull run in 2020. I remember, you know what, the video.
Well, yeah, in 2020, a lot of people came in for the price, because
not just price.
I mean, it was a huge price. It was a huge.
But I remember for example, let's take France. On France, people discovered Elrond through Asher, the KOL. Okay, most of them, and on the video he made in partnership with the foundation, with the founder. I don't know if you remember this video. I remember this video. And on this video,
I remember he had some shows.
40 minutes. He went to Romania. He showed the infrastructure. He explained sharding and so on. And what I was mentioning just before is you guys managed to make sharding, which is a technical thing, out of reach of like most of the population. And I'm not a tech, and I was not an EVM user, but I found it cool because by sharding you can shard it. So in terms of marketing, in terms of the message that you send to the Web 2 and Web 3 users was interesting at this end. So was genius in my opinion, because who today is possible to make like a liquidity pool, infrastructure stuff, very complex things, marketable and accessible to everyone. So that's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, but I have to point out that a lot of people were talking about sharding. And the thing is, if you're a developer or enthusiast or an investor, at least at that time, a lot of the people would have attended conferences, so it was not just an online thing. You would go to conferences, and a lot of the talks would have been about sharding, a lot of people trying to do different things.
I think you're in the bubble, guys. Look at the number of users in 2019 and the people and the Web3 users in 2021. It went from, I think it was 200 to 300 million people. So I think you guys went to conference, you were developing the code, but most people did not even know about sharding. What they liked is Maillard, the wallet was unbelievable, okay? And the communication with KOL around sharding and let's onboard the next 1 billion user. All the rest, in my opinion, was not enough to attract that many people. But at this moment, I was not completely 100% in crypto. I was a founder. I ran a company in crypto world, but I was more about regulatory issues at this moment. But anyway, really, I think it was one of the biggest strengths of Elrond at that time. But yeah, it's interesting to have our different opinion. Arno from he went from EVM, Ethereum, DeFi. You're a developer and you were inside the team, and me completely outside of all of this. So it's interesting to chat about this.
Yeah, and we actually always thought that Ethereum will eventually do sharding. I mean, I still think they might.
Actually,
in a very long time.
I forgot about it. Now they included the blob, so I think sharding is not.
They went all the way on L2s. So they thought, sharding is hard. Maybe L2s can be done easier. Problem with L2s is they tend to be very centralized. It's very hard to make them decentralized. And actually, there's another very interesting thing that I thought about. Because there were discussions. I remember in the past few months, people were once again discussing sharding, and now that it's not I mean, it's still a cool topic, but it's not so popular anymore. People are like, oh yeah, right, sharding. And a lot of people were arguing that sharding is not as secure because you're splitting the. I mean, why would sharding be more secure than L2s, right? Because it's a valid question, because you're splitting the state into smaller shards. So basically each shard has a lot fewer validators. And presumably, you want to do like 10,000 shards, you get with very few validators on every shard. So how is that different from having L2s? And the answer to that is actually because shards are homogeneous, right? They're the same. So the way we implemented sharding, it's homogeneous. Every shard is exactly the same rules. The validators run the exact same software, which means, and this is very important, it's our flavor of sharding with the secure proof of stake and the adaptive state sharding, is that you get to shuffle the validators between shards. And this means it's very hard to attack a shard because you'll only be in a shard for a very small amount of time. In a few days, in a few rounds, you'll move to another shard. So it's almost impossible to get a majority of nodes that you control in a shard, so you can have a shard takeover, because they'll be shuffled all across the whole blockchain, across all shards. And statistically, it's very improbable that you have like 20 shards. Oh, right, like my 100 validators all end up in the same shard. It's almost impossible. Whereas with L2s, because they're heterogeneous, they're different. If you want to just use them for scaling, sure, L2s have their uses, I guess. But for scaling, if you want to do that, they are less secure because you're never going to shuffle validators between one L2 and another L2, and that's like a fundamental difference that I feel people don't get. And that's why sharding is actually the secure way to scale forever, whereas L2s are good for other things. They're good for specific applications. They're good for big corporations. Well, actually, we're not very big fans of L2s because they're a bit cumbersome. We have something much better, which is the Lightning chains, which is, again, you want something special. You want a chain that is special for your business, for your use case, probably not for your average project. Yeah, but for scaling, you have sharding, and sharding works. I'm pretty sure that sharding will become cool again once people figure it out. So yeah,
it's a good question. People tend to discover solutions, whether they have to create them or they already exist and they want to use them, once they start hitting problems. And I think an interesting parallel has been with AI the last few weeks with the MCP standard from Anthropic. The Anthropic MCP standard was developed more than a year ago and nobody cared. And then LLMs started to be plugged into AI agent frameworks, and those AI agent frameworks started to be plugged into tools, Gmail, etc., etc., etc. And the experience is still a nightmare. Like, you have to do so much duct taping to make the whole thing. And interestingly enough, Anthropic thought about this a year ago, and they designed a framework. And so those tools started to implement the framework. And now the conversation about how can we make LLMs and AI agents and tools more composable, basically. And it's a scaling issue. It's the same thing. So
same thing.
Ultimately, do you guys, you talked about a bet, and I think
it's a bet. Oh, actually, there's even a better thing. Any of you guys are playing like MOBA kind of games, like Dota or League of Legends or stuff like that?
I played a
or
lot.
At least you're vaguely familiar with how they work.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. So you have heroes on each side.
Yes.
And there's two teams with heroes. They're basically RPGs. So yeah, you have to level up and stuff like that. And they fight one another. And you have different types of characters, different types of heroes. There are heroes who shine in the early part of the game, like who help you survive, early part of the game, and then you and support and gankers and all kinds. But it's all of these games, they have a very important type, which is the carry, right? The carry is called the carry because it carries the end of the game. So if they manage to not lose the game in the first half hour or hour, and they have some very powerful carries, the other team has no chance in the end game, right? So that's how I feel about sharding and MultiversX. The sharding technology is carry, right? So long term, nothing beats it. It crushes everything, you know. But right now,
GRM, you will need, mark my words, the analogy that Andrei made between the MultiversX technology and League of Legends. It's golden. You need to take this as a snippet. You need to take this as a snippet and put it as a 1 minute to attract people in there, because I think it's actually a very good analogy.
Yeah. So long term, it crushes everything. There's no question about it. Just it's not obvious yet because the game is not there yet. The game.
So it's a game of surviving until the late stage.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and we have it. So we have it. We're doing all these kinds of things once the actual users come in, because I don't think we're seeing the actual kind of users yet anywhere in the blockchain space. So DeFi is cool, but DeFi is for power users. I mean, sure, there are projects like Hata, for instance, where you can, it's pretty easy to use. You put some, stable coins there, you get some interest. I could explain that to my grandmother, but most of DeFi is way too much. Like, or X Portal, I could explain this to my mom or my grandmom. Most of the stuff is alien. It's too much. It's almost impossible to use. Everybody who wants to buy some Eagle first ask me, how do I buy Eagle? They, even though the software is really nice, like X Portal is super nice. There's a lot of other wallets and whatnot were really nice, but people are still scared. It's like still an alien technology. So we don't actually have the many users. We have the bold ones, the curious ones, or in the bull markets, those want to get rich quick, but that's a different question. And that's why we also see so many people on the centralized exchanges, which they're great. We need them. But the centralized exchanges are not really what this industry was built for. They are more like the gateway into our industry. So we don't see the users yet on none of the chains, not the real thing. It's not those billion users which we are going to onboard. They're not here yet. And once they are here, then we will see, it will be obvious. Then it will be the true test of the technology. That's the end game, like when people actually start needing sharding. Because until now, just for DeFi and stuff like that, you can do it without sharding, it's true. For the kind of usage that we have right now, you can pull it off with just like,
if I may, I thought something a few days ago, and I would like to propose you my my take. Sharding, or the tech that your guys are building for years now, can only win if all the others fail. It's maybe a simple way to think, because you don't have as much you don't have as much fund, you don't have, you know what I mean? So what
I wouldn't go as far. So sharding, I say it crushes in the long game. So it wins decisively once there's a huge usage and maybe other chains maybe can't keep up. But right now, it's not like we're losing or anything. We just don't have such a big advantage. It's just like we have a blockchain, they have a blockchain. We have these products, they have these products. So it's not, sharding is not such a huge advantage yet, because there's not such a huge demand for the TPS. But it doesn't mean we're losing. We're still offering a very good blockchain, just as maybe many other blockchains. I would rather say in the long term, when you have the huge user bases, it's only the sharding that remains like relevant and on the market, or can be used by the many people. Whereas right now, everybody has their own blockchain, and everyone has their own products, and we just compete like regularly, on the same kind of. I mean, we still have a very powerful blockchain, even with with the kind of numbers that we have right now, it's still a really good blockchain. And there's a lot of other things. It's not just sharding, right? We're also going to get the finality upgrades this year. What people also underestimate, and actually that's what I'm doing, is we have a really, really nice development framework. I talked to a lot of people, and everybody who's been developing on MultiversX and other chains, they said, oh man, your developer experience is much better. Like, and I know it's not perfect. I know there's a lot of things to be desired, but so at least that's what the feedback I got from people. It's way nicer than what you get on other chains. You have the ESDTs who are really friendly to use, really nice. You have export. There's a lot of things.
It's the same for ESDT. It's the same. I think it's brilliant. It's genius, and all the ecosystem should adopt such standard. Okay, but despite all the problems with ERCs and so on, you know it all better than me. Despite of these problems, the hacks, the drains, and so on, it's not completely adopted. So what do you think? What could make our on MultiversX standard? So sharding, ESDTs, why not also guardians? All this innovative stuff I really like. What could make them mainstream, normal, adopted? So my take, and I know it's a very simple and maybe a marketing stake, but I think it can make people think. All the others should fail, and you know what? Everybody would open their eyes. Okay, the solution is there. And so as long as the other solution that are not perfect at all are working or are enough for people, they will continue to be adopted. So I would like to have your takes, Arno and Andrei, the tech guy and the business guy, to challenge my position, and I want to change my mind if I need to. Arno maybe, or Andrei.
Whichever. Yes.
I can start, and then Andrei can bring the technical side of things. So how I see the current space is that we are still building the foundations of a new digital era. And I think that, it's similar to when you want to build skyscrapers that resist earthquakes. We are building the foundations, and the foundations, most of the foundations, most of the blockchains are not ready to sustain earthquakes for many different reasons. And so what we think today as what we see as adoption and the activity that we see on other chains, and we could feel FOMO. There's not even a village built upon those foundations right now. And the goal is for us to be able to sustain the world. So I see the blockchain infrastructure as a way to have information, and money is information, any type of digitized item, and it can be identities, it can be so many things in the future. Everything will be tokenized because it's a so much more efficient way to have information stored, flow, owned, but we're still in the early phase. And so, as Andrei said, it's a bet. It's a bet. And my business take on this is that right now, the activity that is happening on blockchains is still very, very, very low compared to how in the future I hope it will become. And so, in my opinion, and I pretty much agree with Andrei's take and the metaphor of the League of Legends metaphor with the carry in the end. When you see Web2, for example, I'm buying a train ticket. I buy my train ticket, I navigate, look for the timing, I purchase, boom, instant. There are only very few chains that can help me have this experience today of instant buying. But instant buying is a user experience thing. But all those chains that allow for instant finality right now, they have made massive trade-offs to reach this point. So if tomorrow we want this type of experience on a blockchain with no trade-offs, it has to come through sharding. And I pretty much believe that the way MultiversX is doing it, and that's why I'm super excited about Andromeda and Supernova, it's because we're going to have a sharded technology that is fully decentralized, safe, able to compete with those user experience, but with the trade-offs from the start, no trade-offs. And I pretty much believe, and it's also my bet, that in the long run, this technology, and then if marketed well, it will make a difference, a big difference. It will actually make all the difference.
Andrei, if you want to, go.
I have a lot of things to say. So first of all, I love this skyscraper analogy. And there's two reasons. One, it's very true that we're building this foundation to support something very big where there is no demand for. But it's a very good metaphor for another reason as well. What happens if you don't have a good enough foundation, right? And you figure it out that your house is cracking and crumbling. What do? You have to demolish everything. You have to wipe everything because the foundation can't be added after you build the house. You want to change the foundation because your foundation is not good enough. You either patch it and hope for the best, and it's going to crack more and more and work worse and worse, or you just have to demolish everything and then build again. And that's why it's not obvious to people why it's important to have a good foundation from the very beginning, because they always think, oh, well, security. Well, just patch security. Or, stuff like ESDTs and composability. We'll just add it later. But there are a lot of things in this world that you cannot add later. Like the foundation to a house is not a feature that you just add later. Like you add 3 more floors to your skyscraper. You can do that, but you can't add 3 more floors or reinforcement to the foundation unless you demolish everything and start from scratch. And that is bet maybe sounds a bit gambly. I would more like say a wager, because we're all invested in this. Our investments, our wager. It's because we put our money and our time and our energy into this. So our money is always where our mouth is at. Is that without this foundation, we're going to have a really bad time in the future. And maybe it's not obvious yet, but yeah. And the second thing I wanted to say with instant payments, because I also use instant payments and pay online all the time. And what I notice, and that's a huge discussion actually, is that the system is working on a happy path very well. So you want to pay, everything's fine, you go on a happy path. But if your payment got canceled, or if the company were scammers and they didn't ship you the thing you wanted, or if sometimes you just hit back, or sometimes your internet goes down while you're paying, and then your money went, but it wasn't fully processed, and you're in some sort of a limbo state. There's a lot of situations like this, and it's interesting because it's often not on the happy path that you see the problems with the system. You see the problems with the system when something goes wrong. And thing with blockchain is, in principle, transactions are atomic. So on blockchains, normally you have a transaction, it's atomic. So it either goes through it or it doesn't go through. And everything is transparent. You always know what went wrong if something went wrong. You always know what's going on in a way that centralized systems don't offer you this thing. They're very good. They're very convenient for the happy path. But whenever something goes wrong, you have to file complaints. Then you get into this very, very slow sort of traditional system of writing emails, complaints. Some human will try to fix it for you, and so on. And also, the payment system that we have nowadays, people don't realize it's running on very old software, on very old infrastructure. Some of it was built in the 80s. A lot of it doesn't have I'm not saying about decentralization and permissionlessness. A lot of it doesn't have like hashes. It doesn't have checksums. So so much of it is built upon trust. So much of it is built upon banks trusting one another and auditing one another. Some very, very slow processes, some very error-prone processes. And we don't see it because they're delivered to us, this product, as something very convenient, which works well on a happy path, but we never see the money that get lost because of errors, because most of the time it will be the banks who pocket it, not pocket it, who give it out of their pockets, and so on. We don't see the inefficiencies of our current system, of our current worldwide payment system, because it's opaque. We only get the end product, and because we don't care that much. But even in the most basic form blockchain, like a centralized blockchain, like controlled by banks and using just like regular money, even that would be a huge improvement of what we have right now. And people don't realize how big. So even without the permissionlessness, even without the openness of it, even just getting a few institutions start using a blockchain just to synchronize transactions would be a huge improvement, and like probably billions of dollars saved every year. Yeah, and we'll get there, I guess, at some point. It's just very slow, because there was a comic at some point. And I love the concept. It's a problemito, The problem is too small. It doesn't hurt enough. So we have a lot of products that are not ideal, just people are not hurting enough, And the same goes with the EVM
We agree on
and
that.
the RC20.
We agree on that. I think
it's a problemito for now. For
Yes.
now, people can take the pain.
yes,
So the inconvenience of switching
yes,
right now is larger than the daily pain,
yes,
And it's hard to get people. So people who got the nice technology from the very beginning, they don't want to switch to the nastier one. But those who got used to, I'm guilty of this myself. I use probably a lot of software every day, and I have a lot of things in my house that could probably be improved, but I just got used to them. It's the same. It's human nature, I guess. And
yes, I agree.
On one end, there is the problem, but on the other end is the opportunity.
yeah,
I mean, at some point, what makes people and company moves, it's either pain or either gain. And
exactly.
So if tomorrow you have the first airline company that starts transitioning all its system on blockchain and it instantly allows you to purchase a flight ticket, and you don't know, but in the back end it is an NFT. It is a tokenized item, and you want to cancel your flight. You want to resell your flight, and you can do it because by essence, having a tokenized item makes it a way more tradable and liquid potentially item. So you can build huge economies, and you could have the airline company taking 5-10% of the resale of this flight ticket. So you build new business models on top of this.
Yeah.
You have the first airline doing this, and instantly all the other airlines, it's not pain, it's the
opportunity.
the game has completely changed, and the opportunity and the opportunity cost of not moving.
And there's that's a tricky one, because airlines might not actually like it because it might eat at their profits. But there's actually another thing that people don't realize with Web3, and that's going to be a discussion I want to have with you guys today necessarily. On Web2, it's not an open market. So you want to buy a ticket, you either buy it from the airline or you buy it from the reseller, and you never know what other options you have, because the system behind is opaque completely. If you put like ticket sales on a blockchain, then you can start to have actually competition on the travel agencies, the resellers, and so on, who can package them to you and give you an experience. But you have competition, and you can actually have access to the prices that other resellers are offering. Whereas in the world that we live right now, it's very tricky. And I know I had a friend at some point who was very adept at finding the best deals, but he had like a huge process, and there's no way you can automatize that, because the second time you enter the same website, you get the worst deal and so on, and depends on what VPN you connect to and so on. All this craziness, of trying to cheat your way into the system and try to get the best deal becomes a lot more transparent, and you actually get competition between the actual products, not just between gatekeepers. You get competition on products, not on gatekeeping, and that's I think something that's really amazing.
Today's internet is a land of intermediaries.
Exactly.
It's insane. I mean, so many intermediaries in today's internet, and I actually think that blockchain is a brilliant technology to make the companies who are actually creating value make the real value, because you can disintermediate everything because it's trustless. And secondly, the second technology that comes on top of this that is brilliant to cut all intermediaries is artificial intelligence. I mean, the browser experience of today's browser experience is, as you said, and your friend, you can become an expert at finding the best deals because you have to browse, you have to search for. Tomorrow, between blockchain and AI, you don't browse anymore. You just ask to your AI, okay, buy me the best deal for the train ticket, etc., etc. Boom, 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 boom. The AI is going to do it instantly, and if we manage to find a nice way to merge those two technologies, wow! I mean,
the trust of blockchain and the transparency of blockchain,
and the UX of AI
and the friendliness of AI.
Yes,
that's actually like, where we have to go. It's
just book me a train ticket. You know what is my agenda? Insane.
Yeah, this is what we're here for. And actually, you touched on something that's very close to my heart. It's actually the reason why I'm still in Web3, and I've always been in Web3 for 7 years now. It's not the money, actually. The money, the money is nice, sure. But we have internet money. We've had internet money before blockchain. It's an improvement, but it's nice. But for me, there's much more at stake. And you mentioned it. It's the way the web looks right now. The web is this tangled mess of intermediaries who are growing bigger and bigger. We own less and less. We are less and less agent-like. We're not even consumers anymore. Like we're products. For instance, on a blockchain, one of this kind of mindset thing. So if we or Ethereum or any blockchain wants to upgrade the software, right? You need everybody to vote on it. You need governance, and then you need all the validators to agree to upgrade their software, and then you can upgrade your blockchain. If the validators disagree or the community disagrees, it doesn't happen. And we can see it on Bitcoin. They've tried to increase the block size for years, and it doesn't happen because people don't want it. When was the last time you were asked about if you were happy or not with the new YouTube algorithm or Twitter algorithm? Or right, it's ludicrous. Or do you agree with how Google charges advertisers to give you the top searches? And do you feel entitled or not to some of that money, right? Because I mean, since you're seeing the adverts, maybe you should get some of, right? So we don't even think in these terms in Web 2, whereas in Web 3 they are foundational. And I really dream of having at some point, for instance, a search engine that is community owned, or a social network where you vote on the algorithm, that kind of stuff, which would start to heal, the state of the web where we're in, where big money comes in. Big money is able to buy any amount of views. You can be fed anything that people pay enough for, and you have absolutely no say in it. Which is, until now, it was a more abstract problem with okay, your data is out there, is being sold. Sure, your eyes, can see adverts even though you're not getting anything out of it. Other people are profiting off of that. Sure, you're buying maybe things because you saw them on the internet, but more and more we see this with this situation where elections are moved one way or another based on who pays more on social media. We get like a popular opinion on stuff. You get the things that we are discussing in society are so much guided by what we get on social media, and we have less and less say into it because the algorithm is opaque, because we don't have a say. Even if I like a page maybe 10 times, sure, in principle, Facebook or whatever, so I'm not picking on one, it's a universal problem of all of them, will probably offer me more content from that page I liked, but they're not obliged to. Maybe they really want to push this product to me because that company paid a lot, and maybe these things that I really want to see, I mean, sure, they might still give them to me, but they might not. I can't force them to give that I can't force them to give me the content that I want, right?
Yeah,
so this is a Web2 thing.
Blockchain opens a world to more economic alignment between all participants.
Exactly.
But you can't, I mean, the market is always right. So at some point,
if it is free, if the market is free, and if it is led to function the way it functions, because that is the thing. Once you
will always have people do gatekeeping. You will always have people do gatekeeping. This is human nature, protecting what you have. So you need to build systems that incentivize people to challenge the gatekeeping, to break the old systems. It is one of the hardest things to do. I think blockchain is also, we've seen in the US how the SEC has been trying to choke literally blockchain technology. It is not because they don't believe XYZ. It's because it was clearly challenging the old system. And by the way, let's not be stupid or about this. The world and the US is changing because the old system has understood that it will not be sustainable to fight this technology in the long term. So let's transition to it, but let's be part of it. So that's why now, it's more flexible. It's okay to build. I mean, when you see BlackRock, Fidelity, JP Morgan, all those companies now becoming pro blockchain, it's because now they have skin in the game. Those companies want to win. They won yesterday, they win today, they want to win tomorrow. If they understand and have conviction that this technology is the one to go with, it's why, the regulatory framework is changing. I mean, we've seen, I think it's on a French media, it's called Cryptost. We've seen Christine Lagarde. I don't know if you know Christine Lagarde, but and out of nowhere, she's been talking about Bitcoin for the first time in a good way. And I mean, I was reading this and reading her words. Man, she uses the same words as Larry Fink. The same words as Larry Fink. So, it's just...
But I want to point out to something else right now. It's great. So it's great that these powerful companies are getting on chain. It's great that politicians are getting on board with this. But it is also very important to keep being very attentive, very wary with this, because all these things from the outside world that come into Web3, they don't only come themselves with the money, they also come with their own interests, with their own agendas. And it's very important to make sure that we do not lose the core values that we started with. For instance, BlackRock and so on, they come with a lot of money. This also gives them a lot of voting power, a lot of sway. They have the capacity maybe to manipulate sometimes the market. And I'm not saying that they're doing it, but the fact that they have the capability to do so.
They are doing it.
Of course they're doing it. Just trying to be polite here. Then the thing is, it's not even a thing about morality. You can be a very moral person, but if you have a big case with a very powerful button and some very powerful levers, sooner or later you're gonna abuse it. And if you're a very moral guy, maybe you will try to avoid abusing those levers, but maybe you will abuse them by mistake, or maybe the guy who comes after you will not have the same moral qualms as you, or maybe you're not a great guy to begin with. So usually whenever there's a very powerful lever, whenever there's a lot of powerful technology around that can be abused, it's usually a matter of time before it becomes abused, you know. So yeah, the same with like social media. We've had them play very nice for very many years, and then there was the Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? Which is not news anymore. And you know, because it's just a matter of time before money starts talking if you let it talk. And it's very tough to keep very strong and be very uncompromising with the core values. You can be compromising about a lot of things, but keeping a set of very strong core values like, you know, freedom, permissionlessness, and you know, lack of censorship and so on. If you're not serious about them, and that is, by the way, my main concern with a lot of the more centralized, let's say some of the L2s, some of the chains which are more centralized. It's not necessarily a problem right now because we're still early, and you can have a more centralized chain, and you know, it's probably going to be fine for a long time. Even we are not as centralized as we're going to become, because it's normal, because protocols become more decentralized over time. If you're very decentralized from the very beginning, it's very hard to improve on the tech. But you know, on the long term, if you're not striving to become decentralized, then you will start to get the political influence. You will start the big money talking, and you will slowly be derailed from your course. And it's a pity, you know. Some people argue that even Ethereum, because there's so much money into L2s, got to be derailed, of course, you know, because the L2s are sucking so much of the fees and so on, of the economic power from Ethereum, you know. And it's tricky. I mean, sure, some of them might agree or disagree that this is a problem, but the thing remains that if a blockchain, it's like, let's say it's not a problem on Ethereum. Let's say hypothetically that it's another chain. It's a fictional chain that, you know, at some point gets influenced and the votes are being, you know, bought, or people are investing in technology that's not helping the core values. How do you stay on track? You know, it's really tricky. And I think this is also a foundational thing. So if you lay the foundations really well, it becomes very hard for political influence to change how the chain will work. If you don't have such strong foundations, it might be hard to undo the political damage, like in 10 or 20 years, once the whole landscape has changed. So it's nice.
When you, an interesting way of, a very simple way of seeing how blockchain can be built to create a different type of world is, you build a new foundation. If it's new and it's built right, it changes how you can build, you know, houses and skyscrapers up top. If you start building your new foundation and you let older builders come in, they will necessarily influence or try to influence so that they can still become or be relevant in the world, so that they can still, okay, you know what, your new foundation is good, but maybe you can put this so that we can still use this material that we used in the past.
Great example, by the way, Ethereum, when they switched to proof of work to proof of stake, of course the miners were not happy. Luckily, they did not block the migration, but they might have, right? Because it was not in their best interest. And this is one, right? Like, if we had the miners won, you know, we would not have had proof of stake Ethereum, because the economic incentives would have been against, you know, migrating to a newer technology. But it's a very good example of, so if you don't have a good foundation, luckily it happened, the migration happened, but you know, it's a cautionary tale. If you don't have a good enough foundation, it might be hard to change afterwards, because it might not be economically advantageous for your some of the key players to migrate, right? So it's something always to keep in mind. And
Yes, you're absolutely right.
tricky thing to get right.
Andrei, we're moving closer towards the end of this show, and I would like you to talk about a completely different subject for the last quarter of an hour. We have builders, we have contributors in our audience, and people who are going to listen to this show again. In our lives, at some point, we read a book, we listen to someone, we maybe discover something that literally 10x's ourselves, help us become, like you unlock the next level of yourself. Do you have some sort of hacks that you would like to share that make you, good in what you do in your life, in your job, but some life hacks that you'd like to share with people that can apply to developers, but also to people like GRM, myself, people in the audience who do what they do in their lives? It can be an advice, it can be a resource, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very simple. Just be curious and never stop learning. And what I also advise people is to go deep. So there's a lot of people who find a new technology, find some new ideas, and they sound good, and then they start talking to friends, but they never go deeper than that. They always keep buzzing the buzzwords, and keep being generally hyped about something without having a deep understanding of it. I think it also applies to us in blockchain. A lot of people are very impressed. It sounds cool. I remember actually one of the first guys who told me about Ethereum. He had no idea what he was talking about, but he thought it was very cool. And it's very good to be hyped at first, but always follow up and try to go deep into these ideas, because there's a lot of people with a superficial understanding of things, but the ones who can make the most of them are the ones who go deep. Like, for instance, we discussed now for, I think, a half an hour or so about the true importance of decentralization, the true importance of this new financial system. To get to this understanding, you have to go deep. You have to read. You have to think a lot. So never be content with your current understanding, because the rabbit hole always goes deeper. I like this thing with the rabbit hole. I always have a few rabbit holes that are drawing me in, and the rabbit hole always goes deeper. And the same goes with blockchain. You have to go deep into the rabbit hole. And I keep telling everyone, price comes and go, tokens come and go. If you're lucky, maybe you made some nice money, you got a new car, whatever. But this is not something. Hopefully, you made yourself enough wealth for your family to not worry for the rest of your lives. But if you didn't, don't worry. That's not the main game. This technology is very new, and the time you invest in understanding the technology is time that is never wasted. You buy a token, you lose, it might be wasted. You buy an NFT, hopefully you bought it because you really like it, not just to flip it, but you might lose. You might lose. Anything you invest in financially, you might lose, especially in such a volatile market, blockchain and otherwise. But the time you spend trying to grow yourself, trying to maybe pick up a bit of programming, maybe learn some DeFi. Like, there's a lot of money to be made if you really understand DeFi. Learn some, try a new app, try a new wallet, try a new blockchain, try some tech. There's so many opportunities there, and you're never gonna lose on those, because what you have in your head stays with you for the rest of your life, no matter how your assets perform. And that's why I always say, it's time to build. Give it a shout out to the builders. Try to encourage people to invest in themselves. Maybe if it was a more mature market, maybe in 50 years from now, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency just like we talk about the stock market, and there will be people, investing, as a safe bet and whatnot. We're not there yet. So right now, the safest investment is in your head, in your brain, in your experience, and like being open to things. And if you're hardcore like me, then yeah, you have to work out and try to make sure your body supports you. It goes without saying. No, it's a really, really important thing. It's a really important thing. If you don't take care of your body, your mind will also not function. I tell myself that every day, and if I don't go for a walk or don't work out for a while, then I'm not capable of thinking. And if I don't sleep well, so yeah, that goes without saying. But other than that, being curious and try to be profound about things, because and a lot of people go with a hype, and the hype is not always all there is, or it's not always the right thing. And just I want to leave you with one idea which I've been very passionate about lately, and that is about, because I did talk about going deep the rabbit hole, and I want to leave you to everybody to think about this, is what should be the true experience of Web3. Because right now, for the most part, you want to interact with Web3, you either have a wallet or you go on a website, and the only thing very Web3 about trading tokens or DeFi is that you have to sign transactions somehow with your wallet or your whatever you're using. But other than that, the experience is very Web2. You enter a portal, you have to trust that the data there is true, and so on. How do we make sure that the Web3 experience is not just the blockchain and not just the developers and not just the people sending transactions directly on the blockchain, but also the end users who are having a portal in front of them? How can they trust that what they're seeing is on chain? And that's probably going to be something we're going to be talking a lot more about, because the most, like, the weakest link dictates the quality of the system, right? If you have a very decentralized system, but the weakest link is very centralized, like you have to trust a certain portal, you have to trust a front end or a server, or you have to trust a wallet or whatnot, then that becomes the weakest link of trust that you have. And so my question, my homework for thinking for people is, how can we make it so that we are trustless from blockchain to front end? And that's and that is the kind of deep thinking that we need to have. And also, what does decentralization mean for us as a society, for us personally? What does it mean for our habits, for the way we interact with other people online? What does it mean for the internet? We have to ask those questions a lot more. And the technology is here to help us, but the technology cannot have the discussions instead of us. We need to have these discussions, and then the technology can help us hopefully get to the right conclusions. But blockchain was never just a tech. Blockchain is technology and society, or sociology, or politics, or economics. So it has a hard technological part, but it cannot work without a social contract, without our us as a community, as a society, discussing about our values, about our desires, about how we want our society to move forward. So we must never forget that this both of them, and we, the tech guys, provide half of it, but we have to be very responsible to make sure that the other half is also well aligned. So that's.
And I want to conclude this by a very down to earth analogy. I live in Paris, and for the last few years, we've seen a systemic issue with the gas pipelines that were foundations in Paris. Every year we have explosions.
Oh wow!
And some of them are like they kill people, they damage entire streets because they're so massive. What's the story behind this? Is that the old infrastructure that was built for gas circulation in Paris has not been maintained first, but is not sustainable anymore for how the city has evolved. And it explodes. So the parallel we can make here is with the state of internet the state of how information and value flows across internet. And we've started to see, data breaches, etc., etc., etc. All those systemic issues. And blockchain is not just a new answer, to a couple of people who want to live hidden from governments or etc. The way we store our information, the way value flows across internet is highly inefficient. Highly inefficient. When you think about a company wanting to buy any good or services in a large amount and has to do international wire transfers, and it takes 6 or 7 days, and it has to go through so many intermediaries on various continents. Try to move $500 million from a French company or any European company to an Asian company. It's going to cost you so much money to do this. And so this is also what blockchain is. It is a way better infrastructure for a world that is increasingly more becoming digital. And with the rise of AI, it's going to be insanely more digital.
Yeah.
So it's not just cypherpunks. It's also a clear answer to the bandwidth and the load that the current system has. And think about it, in a few years, we don't want gas explosions like in Paris. So we need a system that is built right, with the right foundations. Sharding.
Yeah, it's a big stake. It's a big stake. We're not playing around here. This is important. It's important for our future as a humanity, I think. It's no joke. So we have to have fun, but also be mindful of the responsibility that we have. Otherwise, we'll be patching the internet forever until we can't patch it anymore. And so it's time to lay the foundations, because you can't, it doesn't happen overnight. Even if you have the right idea, it takes a long time to grow a new set of practices on the internet. It takes time, and it's never too early to start. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Andrei. We enjoyed a lot your chat, guys. Actually, I was more like in the audience, and I liked it for once. Thank you very much, Arno and Andrei. Andrei, it's always a pleasure to listen to you. Your enthusiasm, your passion, we can feel it really, and it's very important, and it's pretty rare for a developer. So it's really, really enjoyable. Thank you very much for this. See you soon on GM Web3, maybe for a regular tech update, like once a month, for example, because the community is only seeing what we can see and is only seeing what we can understand. So if you can come and explain and maybe try to make it accessible to everyone, you will always be welcome on GM Web3. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And see you very soon. Thank you very much, Andrei.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Andrei.
Bye. Thank you, Arno, as well.
It was huge. It was very cool. It was very, very cool. I can see that you enjoyed this chat. So did I. We can see in the comment that Foudres wanted to interact, but he did it on Twitch. And look at the comment. So it's too long even to be displayable on the screen. So I asked him to comment again, but on X it will be easier for people to read his take about that, because it's cropped this way. But I hope you guys from the audience liked this chat.
Can you remove the thank you? It's taking off the screen.
Yeah, so that's why. But thank you, Fura, and I hope you enjoyed this show. Arno, next week there will be no GM Web3 because of Paris Blockchain Weeks. But we'll meet for my birthday on the 9th, so it will be on Wednesday. But see you in 2 weeks for a new GM Web3 dedicated to MultiversX. And in the meantime, take care of yourself. Don't forget to subscribe, to put a like, a comment, to activate the bell, to rate the podcast if you're listening it on the podcast platforms. And yeah, take care of yourself and stay tuned. Bye-bye.